Hey guys, you'll see me in a few minutes. Amanda's getting us settled. She's my awesome team member. Amanda, I'll let you do all the promoting of our guests on your end.
Okay.
Hey guys, you'll see me in a few minutes. Amanda's getting us settled. She's my awesome team member. Amanda, I'll let you do all the promoting of our guests. Is that me, Amanda, that's doing that?
Yeah, I think so.
Hold on, so I have to... I don't have YouTube on though.
Oh, maybe it was not.
Might have been from the streaming of it.
Yeah, maybe.
I didn't hear it again when we said this last part. I want to give them 1 minute. Mandy, have them set to... You're a panelist, awesome, Jared. Victoria and Bruce, I'll bring you guys up after my intro preview here. Man, I don't hear any background noise, do you?
No.
All right. When they edit it for Nacho, they always can just like cut this out if they want. Now people can just hear the behind the scenes to Dental Nachos TV. It's a huge station. There's 2 people. It's me and Amanda.
Big production.
Cool. It's going to turn 8 in just a second here.
Welcome to Dental Nachos TV. You are watching how not to burn your nachos when buying a dental practice. My name is Paul, Dr. Nacho Goodman. I am the host, the main speaker, and also the commercial guy because our budget for this show is quite small. We did get a review of our last show. The review said the show was perfect in every way. That reviewer was my Aunt Gigi. She also wants me to let you know that I am smart and handsome, and if anyone needs a pie, she will be glad to bake it for you. On tonight's episode, we will talk about how to avoid a $30,000 mistake when purchasing a dental practice, a mistake I made 9 years ago and I'm still quite annoyed about. If you missed the first episode, the 4 P's to purchasing a practice, you can watch it for free by texting FLIX, F-L-I-X, to 215-543-6454. How not to burn your nachos while buying a dental practice is sponsored by the Dental Nachopedia and Dental Nacho Flix. The Dental Nachopedia is 60 plus hours of amazing CE that you get to own for life as a learning resource. It goes over every topic: clinical, practice management, business, leadership, patient communication, and most of all, how to cry inside less each day as a dentist. You can own this for life for less than $500. Dental Nacho Flix is amazing CE as well that you get to rent monthly for only $19. For those of you dentists who have a lot of debt or are just super frugal. To learn about either of these, just visit dentalnachos.com or text FLIX to 215-543-6454. If you are watching this show live, please feel free to ask questions in the Zoom chat. If you're watching this on demand, just shout the questions at your TV and I may hear them. So we're going to start the show in just a minute, but before we start it, I want to remind you that we have awesome prizes at Dental Nachos. Write down this number, 215-543-6454. It's our Dr. Nacho community text. To get started, if you text CBCT to 215-543-6454, we will send you a free CE course on the value of using a CBCT. Also, I want to ask you a question. Do some of you have hopes? Do some of you have dreams? I had hopes, I had dreams. One of them was to dunk in the NBA. That dream did not come true. But if you want some help with your dentisting dreams, how to treatment plan your life, just text DREAMS to 215-543-6454. One of my favorite things to do is to get on calls, Zooms, FaceTimes, and to help dentists at any age or stage treatment plan their dentisting life in a super affordable way help you know what to do as the next step to not burn your nachos and feel more confident in the decision you're about to make. And as always, if we can help you in any way, just reach out to us at dentalnachos.com. And I hope you enjoy this show, how not to burn your nachos when buying a dental practice, how to avoid a $30,000 mistake by following the Nacho Yellow Brick Road. Hey guys, welcome to How Not to Burn Your Nachos when buying a dental practice. Avoid a $30,000 mistake like I did 9 years ago by following the Nacho Yellow Brick Road. This is episode 2. If you want to see episode 1, the amazing Amanda is here with us. She can help you with that on Dental Nacho Flicks. We're going to have a fun show. You guys get to ask questions, ask them in the chat. We have some special guests here. So I'm going to bring up our first special guest here in a second. But while we have our special guest up, it was my birthday week. I can't make a birthday month. That's way too dramatic. But it's the end of my birthday week. And Amanda picked her favorite picture of me, baby Dr. Nacho. And if you text this in, you do just get a $100 gift card with no exclusions. A lot of people were texting that in today. So I'm going to bring up my friend, key resource and sponsor, Victoria. And she is going to chat with us about what they have going on and how we can apply this to practice transitions. So Victoria, you can share your video whenever you are ready, if you would like. Hey, Victoria, how are you doing?
Hi, Paul. How are you? I've also got Dr. Bruce Baird here with me tonight.
Hey, Bruce, you're not going to make me jealous this time. Are you still in Hawaii or am I?
No, I'm in Anacortes tonight because we're moving to Hawaii permanently on October 1st.
Are you really, like a Seinfeld joke, sticking it to me with that one, Vicky? So, yeah. So Bruce and Vicky are awesome. They are key resources and sponsors, amazing people. They run the Productive Dentist Academy and do a number of things. And what I like to do is to give you guys resources, whether you're early in your practice journey, mid-practice journey, about to buy a second or third practice, have them come on for a few minutes and share what they do and how they help dentists. Before the coronavirus, it was normal to go to in-person see, walk around and meet people. Now that just has become not normal. I hope it becomes normal again. But either way, think of this as a virtual meet and greet of people who can help you. So Victoria, I'll start with you. How do you guys help dentists and what will you be talking about tonight?
You know, what I think we do best is we help dentists get into the right mindset, both clinically and professionally. And it all starts with your philosophy of care. And, you know, going through your career, it gets beat out of you. In dental school, you're just looking for procedures. And then you get out and you start following insurance codes. And sometimes you forget why you became a dentist. And once you lose your way, it's really hard to find your business rudder and become productive and predictable. So that's the main thing that we do. And I love that you brought up this piece about live events being more difficult and how we're working in a virtual program. Happy to share a little bit about that tonight.
Awesome. And you guys have coming up, we have some awesome nachos. One, Dr. Maggie, who's taking your program. What's the next program you guys have coming up that will help people in their practice owning journey, whether they bought a practice recently, whether they're thinking about it? Share with us about that. And Amanda will share with them how they can find out more about it.
You bet. In fact, the program that Maggie just completed, she's going on to the next level with us, but it's called Foundations. And that's the one she's been talking about is the one that starts on Thursday. So we're going to have orientation on Thursday. First bit of pre-work drops on Thursday. And the course actually starts opening up this week. You have until the 24th to actually register. So we're going to kick it off this Thursday night. Registration will stay open until September 24th. And we've got a delicious nacho topping for all your people.
I don't know if you noticed, my dentist people, they really love a deal. It's one of their favorite things. Not on their crown preps, those are works of art, but you know, they like a deal. But I think that's awesome. And one of the things I'll share as a medium-age practice owner, and it happens with implant cases and practice management, people say, I should have done this sooner. I should have got on the right track sooner. I regret not acting sooner. So I'm a big JFO, just find out about what you guys are doing. You're an awesome resource to have. And we'll share in the chat here about your foundations courses. It sounds awesome. And especially if you're going through a transition or about to go through a transition, one of the things that I've talked about in my podcast in CE courses is how challenging it is to transition the team, right? The dentist may be leaving, the team's staying. There's people who's, have chart mergers. We have a whole new culture coming to your practice. The dentist says, hey, I'm going to Arizona. See you later. So there's such a great resource. I appreciate that very much, Victoria. Now, Bruce, I'm going to go over to you.
Bruce, share with us what you guys do. You do so many different things like me, different nacho toppings. Which topping are we talking about tonight?
Hey, we're talking about our foundations course, PDA, and one of the things that I know has happened during this last 3 months, 4 months, 5 months is, we've never had the time to actually look at our business. We were always worried about the dentist down the street. We're not really worried about ours. We can always outproduce whatever we need to make a living. But now it's been the first time ever that we've had an opportunity to look at that. And plus, a lot of people were scared and looking for the right kind of guidance. Most of it didn't have a phenomenal, business course in dental school. And so what we do is we try to help somebody when they come through this course. You end up a 2-year program, a 2-year game plan for exactly where you want to be. And there's a lot of peer-to-peer in this program too. Like Maggie and them, everybody became like best buds, almost like meeting at the bar and becoming best buds on a real life, program. But I was amazed at how well it works, and just the results that we got over this last 8-week program that we did. And we're excited about this one we're doing now. So
I love that. I've used this before. I just was on the Peloton, so if I was so when you're a medium-aged dad, you don't have a lot of time to exercise, do things. You got to do a little bit each day. And, the same thing with practice management and these things. It's actually too overwhelming. Maybe you'll see Tyler Tolbert. He might have 4 hours to go to the gym. He's, young dental student. I had those days. But when you're a practice owner, I had my book here. I have 2 things near me at all times: Nachos and the E-Myth Revisited, because it's about working on your business instead of in it. And I will share in the most genuine way. It's very easy and normal just to get caught up working in your business, especially during this time, because you're just trying to survive. And survive doesn't always mean financially. Sometimes mean, do I have enough team members today? What's the newest protocols? So when you have a resource like what you guys are offering for such a reasonable investment, what's the total investment, Vicki, in the 8-week course?
For Nachos, it's going to be $2,700. So it's $3,200. You'll get $500 off, and your brother is registered. We're excited to.
I can't wait to have him in there. I mean, this is what I'll say to you, and I know, when someone older than you says something like they had to walk uphill both ways to school, but I will share with you, $2,700 will come back to you in production. But more importantly, there's no price you can put on your sanity. And investing in your dentisting sanity is something you will not regret. Getting the tools to do that, because they do not give us that in dental school. So I'm proud to have you guys share here to kick off this show. For me, I've purchased multiple dental practices. I'm going to share errors that I've made, team errors that I've made. And I wish I had a resource back in 2011 like this, because it just wasn't out there. And now through the power of the internet, Zoom, all of these things, even though we're going through such a challenging time, we can still capitalize, another C word, on this during this time. So one more time, Vicki and Bruce, share with me how someone could sign up and find out more.
Yeah, you bet. So this is an 8-week process, and you're exactly right. You don't want to swallow it all in one chunk. That's why we've broken it down. And interestingly enough, it started being created in 2011 when I bought my first 3 practices. Yeah. So a lot of what we've learned over the years is in it. You go to productivedentist.com. You'll see our foundations course there. And when you're registered, put in 2020 nachos.
Yeah, see, you can save some money. If people want to send me some guac, that's no problem. You can do that since I got you a deal. But thanks so much, guys. We're going to have some fun time here. I know you guys are going to be heading off to do other stuff. If you want to stick around and watch the show and anything in the chat, great. If not, really appreciate you jumping on here and sharing with the group.
Great.
Part of the community.
Thanks, Paul. My brother was in the last program, so we'll take good care of him.
Thanks, I appreciate it. He's going to love that. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great rest of the day.
All right. You too, buddy.
Awesome. Okay, Del Nachos crew here. The next thing we're going to go to is, since this is like a TV show, and if you missed episode 1, I have William Ladd, Dental Focus Superhero Accountant. That's what he calls himself. We also have Tyler Tolbert, who's an amazing D4, is going to come up in a few minutes and share with us a couple of things about his life. But I talk about this a lot, orienting your mind. You go into your office, so many things are going on. You have to orient your mind. So you're at this course. Let's take a few minutes, like one of those Game of Thrones recaps, and say, what happened in episode 1 here? What happened here in episode 1, so that we can use this as a jumping off point for you. Tyler, you're welcome to keep yourself on screen, but I'm just going to play this for about 4 minutes, and then I'll bring it back on.
Sure, no problem.
Awesome, guys.
I made a $30,000 mistake in buying. I made a $30,000 mistake in buying a dental practice. I did not know who to hire. I was not aware. I was unprepared. And it cost me $30,000. My name is Paul, Dr. Nacho, dentalnachos.com. And if you're watching this and you want access to this content after this show, just text FLIX to 215-543-6454. Just text FLIX, F-L-I-X, to 215-543-6454. You will get a free 30-day pass to Dental Nacho Flix. Awesome content, top with CE. So you can watch this information again, or if you missed it live, you can watch it, because what I'm going to share with you during this show will help you not burn your nachos when buying a dental practice. Who is going to lead you in the most important decision of your life? It's one of my favorite places in Philadelphia, Washington Square Park. One of our most famous leaders here on earth, George Washington. So as I walk around the park, I'm going to share with you this story of how I made a series of mistakes that cost me $30,000 when buying a dental practice. So one of my favorite things to say is the story is the star. So let's start with this story. It was 2011. I worked with my dad and my brother in New Jersey. An equipment rep, supply rep, had heard of a dentist nearby that was unfortunately sick and needed to sell his practice. He alerted us that this opportunity was available. This represents one of my Nacho tips, ABC. Always be connecting. Connect with people who can help solve problems for you. If you are looking to purchase a dental practice, those people will be other dentists, specialists, supply reps, industry professionals. This is a great way to know about practices outside of brokers. But brokers, and I am one now, working for the seller for United Dental Brokers of America, brokers have access to the most practices. So this supply rep connected us with the broker. How I burnt my nachos, step one, was this broker was a dual representation broker. At the time, I was unaware, unprepared, didn't know how to protect myself. Dual representation is nacho nuts. I don't know how. This exists in the dental industry. To share what dual representation is, I will use a good joke from my friend, Rob Montgomery, excellent dental-focused attorney, and my podcast partner and personal dental-focused attorney. Now, I did not have Rob at that time. A dual representation broker claims they can represent the seller and the buyer in the same transaction. It would like someone telling you they are an Eagles fan and a Cowboys fan at the same time. Doesn't sound right. So how can a dual representation broker represent your interest and the interest of the seller at the same time? Additionally, the other nacho nuts part, and to start, how I cost myself money, was I had to pay an additional fee to work with this broker. So the dual representation broker collects a fee from the seller and the buyer. The level of toxicity of dual representation brokers can vary. This one was not the most toxic. There are some that are extremely toxic, and the percentage that you pay is nacho nuts. So number one, find out what type of broker you are working with. A dual representation broker can cause you to burn your nachos. So when I looked at this practice in 2011, there are 4 P's I want us to focus on. 4 P's: the process in buying a dental practice, the people, the price, and the profit. The process, the people, the price, and the profit. One of the things I like to share is that trying to learn too much information at once will overwhelm your mind. So take from this video, this content, take home tips, jot them down, put them on notes in your phone. There are ways for you to remember what we talked about here. And as I mentioned before, if you would like access to the show after the show, just text FLIX, F-L-I-X, to 215-543-6454. So back to my story of how I cost myself at least $30,000 in purchasing this dental practice. I shared with you number one way to burn your nachos, working with a dual representation broker. process, people, price, profit. Let's start with the process. So how do you start developing a plan to purchase a dental practice? The broker, you will connect with brokers. I recommend you connect with as many brokers as possible, even dual representation ones, but be cautious. The more brokers and people that know that you're looking for a dental practice, the more chances you have of having a dental practice be put in front of you. Now, getting back to our story, this practice collected $300,000 a year. $300,000 a year. And in collecting $300,000 a year, it had a profit, P word, of $100,000. I believe we can explain things to people like 4-year-olds. As I walk around Philadelphia telling you this story, the movie Philadelphia, Denzel Washington says numerous times, explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old. How can we break down complex things like buying a practice into ways anyone can understand? And the 4 Ps are part of it. Process, price, profit, people. So the broker told me the price of this practice that collected $300,000 was $215,000, 71% of collections. It is a myth that dental practices are worth 60 to 70% of collections. So, number 2 way to burn your nachos in purchasing a dental practice. The number 2 way to burn your nachos in purchasing a dental practice is to judge the price based on percentage of collections. A tip, a golden nacho tip that I've learned working with United Dental Brokers of America and Bob Septak, the founder of the company, is that net profit, another P word, is the most important factor in valuing a dental practice. What is a quick way to understand?
So that was the start to episode 1 to reorient us how I got involved in making a mistake, working with a dual rep broker, not asking enough questions. We're talking about the follow the Nacho Yellow Brick Road. We'll bring on Bill and Jared. They are awesome dental focused accountants. They have temporary tattoos that say EBITDA on each bicep. And I'm going to interview them and share with you. These are people that you would put on your team to help you with this process. Someone who I wish I had on my team during this time. We had a good traditional accountant that had helped us, but this was 2011. And some of the stuff we know now, we did not know as well then. So I did not know that 1.5 to 2 times the net profit would be a good range to pay for this practice. I was afraid of conflict. There's a lot of C words out there right now: coronavirus, confidence, culture. Conflict is a big part of this process. There's going to be conflict. Dentists do not like conflict, but that's where you can rely on your team members. So I want to welcome Jared and Bill, key resources and sponsors. Just orient the group here as to who you guys are, how people could reach out to you if they want to learn more about what you do, and what do you do on a day-to-day basis. I'll start with you, Bill.
Yeah, so thanks, Paul. Appreciate you having me on. You said it over and over, and I love it, that, it's a journey. And every entrepreneurial endeavor is a journey. It has a beginning point and an ending point. And in my mind, the beginning point begins when you're sitting there at that D3, D4, or wherever you are in whatever business you are, when you start having to see that, hey, maybe I don't want to be an employee the rest of my life. And maybe there's more to me than just, collecting a W-2 wage or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of where the journey starts. And, you have to get your head right at that point. And then you kind of move into the next phase where you start looking, you start thinking, hey, it is right. I'm ready to go. What does this look like? So, you kind of pull in and you find your resources. You go out and you find a practice. You need to find somebody who can help you analyze it. That's something we can slide in and do. Then once you get it, you're going to need help getting it set up and getting it set up right. And getting dialed in on some basics of business that you probably don't know. And that's where we can slide in there. Once you get that going, then you got to get where you're so dialed in, it's just spitting out cash. And it can be done, and that is where you take it to the next level. And that's where a lot of our advisory type services come in to really analyze what's broken, what needs to be fixed and make it better. And then we start looking at the end game, start dialing this thing in so we can sell it and do well, retire to whatever kind of freedom you have in your mind. And, that's our whole goal, Paul, is we want to help you on every step along the journey to try to make you better, to try to help you understand the business of dentistry, to tell you what's broken. We may not have all the answers, but we do believe in connections, one of those C words. And that's what we try to do.
And I think what you said, you really broke down the circle of dentistry life really well there in just a few minutes. So whether you're a D3 or D4 associate, you're a dentist looking to buy another practice, it's about buying the right practice for you.
Absolutely.
So what happens is a lot of times, and we've had some amazing people at our boost camps. One is Dr. Matt Anise, who bought a $500,000 practice and grew it to $1 million. That's very difficult to do. That you don't see that often. He added, we're going to bring on Tyler in a few minutes talking about implants. He added implants to that, but that's not what I would recommend for your first practice purchase. This whole thing that I'm talking about here tonight, guys, I was with my dad and my brother. This was a second practice purchase that we had made some errors on. If this was a first practice purchase, the errors would have been more severe. So getting the numbers starting right for you and what makes sense, I liken it a lot to having a child. When you bring a child home from the hospital, no training whatsoever. I don't know how this is allowed. They just hand you the baby and say, take it home. But people come and help you watch it. But nobody wants to come and watch your 4-operatory practice with 8% profit. So you're sometimes stuck. And while I make a lot of jokes on this can cause stress, depression, problems. So I appreciate, Bill, you guys are dental focused accountants. Amanda can share in the chat. You guys are on our Dental Nachos website. What I recommend is in the JFO world is reach out. I call you guys the endodontist because you do a specific thing, but the endodontist determines if the tooth can be maintainable, not savable. Calm down, Dennis, very dramatic. It's not Private Ryan, but the endodontist a lot of times helps us determine if the tooth, if it's good to maintain it. We go to this, they do a specific thing. Accountants are very much like that in this process, and engaging with one early is important. Jared, share with us a little, you can add to that a little bit about your day-to-day and how you help practice owners at any age or stage.
Yeah, Bill said it perfectly, and I'll use some of your lingo here. So the BADs, the RADs, the MADs, wherever you're at on the journey, you can jump in with us and we can help you along the way. Really what Bill said, we want to help dentists understand the business of dentistry, because that's the number one thing we probably see is dentists are extremely good. And you mentioned Gerber's, E-Myth Revisited all the time. They're very good technicians and they just want to jump into practice ownership. We want to make sure that the business principles are known by that dentist. They understand all the time the levers in a business that you can pull to generate profit and more importantly, cash flow in your business. And we want to help them educate that so that when they have the practice ownership, looking at it or have practice ownership, make sure that we can generate cash flow to help them guide them along that entire journey.
Because Mark Costas, my good friend, awesome, amazing person, always talk about cash flow being the oxygen for your business. And, don't have this myth that is bad dentists who don't mismanage their cash flow. It's a very complex thing to be running businesses that do $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $1 million, especially when you purchase them and you're paying off your loan and you're having other things. You think this is okay. If we just look at my situation here, we could go back to the future, one of my favorite movies like Michael J. Fox, and I could talk to myself in 2011, first, the asking price of $215,000, 71% of the collections, that was just sort of a myth, right? That didn't really have anything to do with the net profit. Additionally, this dentist was unfortunately sick, so the goodwill really wasn't able to be transferred. So if I went back, I'm a genuine person, I'm an authentic person, but I would talk with that seller's family and say, hey, it's not worth $215,000. Maybe when I say $30,000 right off the bat, I think it could have been easily $30,000 less and they would have taken it. And one of the things we'll talk about, we're going to have our episode next week. I just like to come up with titles, guys. It's going to be what to do when your practice deal is about to die and you don't want to cry. So that sometimes the bank comes in, you cannot expect the bank to protect you because the bank often is they're great at what they do, but they only really care if you pay your loan. They don't really care if you have enough money to buy a house or not, as long as you're paying that loan. So that's critical. Before we continue, guys, I'll ask you guys for one thing. We have awesome dentists on here, any age or stage. What's one thing you would say, hey, if you were sitting here in 2020, thinking about getting into practice ownership, buying a practice, what's one thing that you would really recommend that they do? I'll start with you, Jared.
Yeah, I've got to go back to the business principles. If you're looking to buy a practice, understand how the practice works, but then do extreme due diligence on that practice to really understand cash flow, not just profit on paper, Don't just say it's going to make profit, because profit and cash flow are a little different. Make sure that thing's going to cash flow based on what you're going to pay for it and how the repayment of the loan and all that's going to work. That would be the biggest thing. Understand that in and out. Don't get confused after you purchase.
Word stuff. What you should describe to dentists is, we're the type of people who help you find MB2 of cash in your practice. MB2 is a canal and a root canal system that's frequently difficult to find. So a lot of general dentists say, it's not there. Endodontists will find it because they're the specialists. And that's what you guys do, good and bad, right? On the flip side, sometimes people, that's why dentists that tend to be reactive. The net income or something, may look lower, but the owner may have a lot of add backs that, that you may not have to. And maybe it says, you say, this guy makes 120, you say, actually makes like 200 grand. He's running all these things through the practice. We don't see these that way. So that it cuts both ways. So I think that's a great tip. How about you, Bill?
That's why I love Jared, is he's just he sees the world very differently than me. He kind of comes straight with the numbers and making sure it's right. I come from the mentality, and is your head right? Or is ownership right for you? Is this really the right move? I've seen people buy practice that had no business buying a practice. They don't want it. They get into it and they hate it. They hate people. They hate messing with them. They'd rather somebody tell them what to do. So, to me, it's make sure it's right for you. And you understand that business, it can be extremely rewarding, but it can also be extremely tough at times. And you just have to kind of understand that that's part of the journey. And once you do it, guys, you have to jump in. You have to understand, you got to kick in a growth mindset like you've never had before. You're going to stagnate. So to me, it's all about getting your mind right and making sure that you're really thinking it through, that it's right for you. And if it is, then you're going to know everything you can. You're going to supplement your weaknesses with great people, and you're going to keep trying to grow as a person and as a dentist and a human being every single day. And I think you'll find that you'll be sitting there at 40 thinking, damn, that was fun. I mean, that's how I look at it. That's what I wish I would have known, Paul. To me, until I was 40 to figure that out, and it irritates the crap out of me. I mean, that just drives me nuts. That's how I look at it.
Smart people learn from their own mistakes. Wise people learn from mistakes of others. Great quote that Amanda. I can't see the question for some reason in the Q&A. Just put them in the chat and copy and paste them before these guys jump off. But what I will share with you guys is, when you're a practice owner, you have to answer so many questions, a business owner in general, that is the real shift in where you are in your dental career. And that's why observe practice owners, listen to podcasts, take team management stuff, the stuff from our first key resources and sponsors. That stuff is gold for you to be able to go through a program where they're going to teach you about the people, managing it, your mindset, like you guys talked about. When you can marry that with the numbers, that's really getting your dentist in core in shape. Talk about the dentist in core, the decisions you make with your mind, business, the communication with your team and patients, and then your clinical skills. So I really appreciate it. Before you guys jump off, just share with us, Jared, how people could reach out to you. They're sitting there thinking, I got a practice on the table. I'd like to know who you guys are, connect to you guys. How would they do that?
Yeah, easiest way, just go to ducketlad.com, and at the top right, click on the work together, put in your input information, what you're looking for, where you're at on the journey to a degree. That'll get in our funnel. We'll reach out and see how we can help.
Awesome. And we had a good question that there'll be a really good one. It's be too detailed. But do you have examples of cash flow versus profit? Examples of cash flow versus profit to show when analyzing practice. If you guys wanted to come up with an example, you could share on Dental Nachos, or just reach out to you guys. Those are great guys. I think one of the things I didn't realize before I got into all this was, advisors, people, they connect with you in a complimentary way, just like we do with patients. We take phone calls, ask people about their problems, schedule them for cleanings, and see what happens. I want to share with you, don't be reluctant to work with an advisor, accountant, attorney, financial planner, because you think it's going to be too expensive. Just find out what this process is like, because there's people sitting out there. Someone today, while I was out with the moderators, Mrs. Nacho said, I'll come on this show next week because I lost $150,000 dealing with a dual rep broker. So sometimes $5,000 or $10,000 of the right advisors is something that's going to pay off forever. So appreciate you guys being Nacho friends. Thanks so much. We're going to keep on here, but feel free to drop anything you guys like in the chat. Thanks so much.
You betcha. Appreciate it, Paul.
Perfect. All right, guys, we're going to show a couple more minutes of this, and then we're going to bring up the awesome D4 Tower, Tolbert Tower. Hang tight. It's going to show a minute of this and then bring you up.
Or get the value of a dental practice from net profit. What is a system? It is 1.5 to 2 times the net profit. So if we take that $100,000 practice, 1.5 to 2 times was $150,000 to $200,000. $150,000 to $200,000. That was the range. The asking price was $215. The broker told me there was a lot of interest in this practice. Now, I want to point out, it is not the job of the broker to do the job for you. So sometimes when I'm the broker for a practice, I work with the buyer, but I work for the seller. I am not a dual rep broker, so I work with the buyer, giving the buyer information, helping them understand some of the data, but I am not there to help the buyer make an offer. The buyer should hire his or her own team. So I just...
Awesome, guys. We're going to go back to that in a second. We're going to bring up my friend, awesome friend here, Tyler Tolbert. He's going to share about what he's doing in this dentistry world. Before we start with Tyler, though, I just said something. It's about building your team. So I am a broker that's not dual rep. I work for the seller. I work with the buyer, because Tyler's on the screen here. I have a practice, a real one that collects close to $1 million, has good profit. It's for sale as 5 operatories. I'm there to work with Tyler as the buyer, giving him all the information, being honest, being genuine. But if Tyler says, what should I offer? What's this? That's a question for his own team for a variety of reasons. That's why you cannot work on both sides, be that Eagles and Cowboys fan, and do a good job. So that's why building your team is so important. Who are some of the people on this team? Dental focused accountant, dental focused attorney, financial planner, possibly a buyer coach as well. The bank is going to be on this team. So develop your team early. It's not possible to not, it's not a possibility to have too many good people working for you. And I know this sounds like one of these philosophical quotes, but it is, good advice is never expensive. Good advice is never expensive. Prior to the coronavirus, I was about to buy, I guess maybe technically it'd be our 5th dental practice. My brother and I invested at least $10,000 in advisory fees. It did not continue for a variety of reasons. Great use of $10,000, because it's important to make sure these things are right. Because I just want to let you know, you cannot return a practice. It's a non-returnable thing. So once you have one, you're stuck with it for at least a decade. So make sure it's the right fit for you. Now I'm going to switch gears and introduce one of my favorite people in the dentistry world. Tyler Tolbert is a D4. I'm telling you about himself, but why Tyler is so awesome is because I met him, I think, when he was a D2 at the Mark Costas Dental Success Summit in person. He's kindly taken all of my fun jokes about him loving to do push-ups, being in awesome shape, being a real bright spot in this dentistry world. He's going to catch us up as to what he's doing, but he also came to Philadelphia to our My First Implant course 2 years ago, which I give him a ton of credit for, to invest himself as a dental student. He also ate at the country's #1 restaurant, Zahav, that night. So Tyler, welcome to our show here, and just share with the dental community here where you are in the dentistry world and what you're doing. I think you might be muted, Tyler, before you're good. While Tyler unmutes himself for a second, I'll share that Tyler inspired us. Do we have to unmute him, Amanda? You're not muted on our end.
I don't think you're muted. Maybe it's your mic. If you look next to the mic, if that little arrow, does it say that your microphone's selected?
On Zoom, possibly at the bottom.
Yeah.
While Tyler can just jump in at any time, one of the things Tyler asked me to do you can always interrupt me whenever you get to say, Tyler, what he asked me to do over this pandemic time was to take our My First Implant experience and virtualize it.
What about now?
We're good.
Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah, I didn't test my audio before I got on. I apologize.
I just bring a younger, smarter, handsomer version of me. So now you're here, Tyler. I'm going to stop my video. You can take over for the rest of the show. But yeah, where are you in this dentistry world, and what's going on with Tyler?
Yeah, so my name's Tyler Tolbert. As you said before, I'm a D4 at the Dental College of Georgia. And I have had the pleasure of attending your My First Implant course in Philadelphia. Had an absolutely wonderful time there. And since then, I have been hosting a segment on the Shared Praxis podcast. It's probably backwards on the video feed here. But what we do is we talk to young dentists and dental students about the benefits of practice ownership and kind of help them walk them through the process and do some vision and mindset work to sort of guide them along into getting into practice ownership. And so in my part in that, I took it upon myself to do some coaching of dental students to kind of help guide them, be they D1s or all the way up to D4s as to preparing them for, success after dental school and owning a practice, of course. And obviously that's a multifaceted process. And one of the things that they needed support in was CE. And, I've gone to a fair number of CEs. So in an effort to provide some value to them, albeit during this interesting era of time, I reached out to Paul and was wondering if we get some recordings from his My First Implant course, which, I can say fairly unequivocally that it's definitely the highest value, for your dollar, especially as a student, implant education that's out there, honestly. And so I really wanted to provide that resource for my clients. And so Paul and I, we worked together and, we helped kind of craft this interesting COVID era implant course that I think is, a really wonderful value for students. And it definitely feeds into, the idea of getting into practice ownership, which is, which is what Share Practice is all about. So I can talk about, where that comes into play. But Paul, I was kind of curious what you want to hear from me.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. 2 years ago, George Ferreri, called me up and said, "Do you want to be in this course with me?" And I really owe him a lot. We become friends and we, joke with each other. So he really got me to start doing a lot of recording of my lectures. We said, "Record this, tell us about being a broker." And I'm on this book where, my face and his face is on this book. I always say, now my dreams come true. And what you guys have done with being a resource is just so phenomenal early, because, I continue to use this example of having a child. And if you're going to have a child, you're not going to have a practice, you might as well learn about it as early as possible for when it happens. And so you can avoid some pitfalls. Before we go into the implant course part and how that relates, how can people learn more about shared practices if they wanted to reach out to you for your next coaching course?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said before, we have a podcast, the Share Practices podcast. You can find it on any podcast app. We're also on Spotify. You can also hit me up on Facebook on Messenger and ask me about our offerings. Currently, we're in the middle of a limited coaching program. However, we are converting to a mastermind setup, which will be sort of a month-to-month issue where, we're going to have big group calls and a community that works together to focus on a lot of our, CE content. We provide, as you mentioned, the Ownership Accelerator, some case acceptance courses, and all kinds of other things and excellent resources. But most importantly, we get together, we talk to people, we get personal, and, we all work together to, try and maximize our potential as practice owners. So that's going to be coming up right along at the end of the year, and we'll be coming out with more information as that comes a little bit closer.
And also, what's truly nacho nuts to me is dentists will take 17 courses on occlusion, still not understand it, but only one of this. There's plenty of opportunity for so many different educational paths, and take multiple ones. People taking Cois and Spear. These are that determine your happiness level, how much money you make, how much time you can spend with your family. Get as much great information as possible. Now, I want you want to use you as a role model, Tyler, and I don't know if I've been asked this exactly. 2 years ago, so Nachos was a smaller group. I was not quite as, into the dental space, but you knew that you wanted to come to this implant course in Philadelphia. That's right. I offered you a student price, but you definitely paid for it. What made you do that? Like, if you're talking to a dental student saying, "Hey, is it D2 or D3? I invested a couple $1,000s in going to Philadelphia for a weekend, and it was well worth it." Share with me, what made you do that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a steal, to be honest. And, I'd be lying to you if knowing that the best restaurant in the world was in Philly didn't have something to do with it. But what I knew is that I wanted to learn about implants, and I wanted to learn it from someone who's doing it in the real world, who knows how it works in the actual private practice environment, and could give me that sort of practical, actionable information. And, you were a trusted voice, and I knew that, you would put something together that would be actionable once I, got out of school. Personally, dental schools vary in how much they really go into implants and how much experience you can really expect to have. In my particular school, there's just not really a whole lot in the way of surgical placement. So I really wanted to go ahead and focus on that and know what to expect, such that, when I got out and I actually had those opportunities to do it, I'd be able to hit the ground running. And, I just see that as such an immediate ROI, especially when I was paying, I guess it was a few $100 for the course. And it was also just an amazing way to do some networking and travel a little bit and get to know some other people. I made several friends, several of whom were dentists, and one that was a D4 at the time. And, I've upheld many of those friendships since then, and we still talk. So, I mean, that's probably the most valuable thing, to be honest.
I appreciate it. And why this implants and transitions are like chips and salsa, I have this all the time, is because here's why. Case acceptance with dental implants, restoring implants, will help you pay your student loans faster. It'll help you pay your practice loan faster. It's something you can often add to a practice that you're purchasing from someone 60 to 70 years old. But if you don't develop these skills along the way, when you get this practice, it's very hard. Just want to share with you, it's very hard to learn a new skill when you're a new practice owner. It's hard enough to run that practice. So when you become a new practitioner, if you want to learn Invisalign, take it as an associate. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but for the first 2 or 3 years, much like a child, since we have a 2-year-old who's sometimes awesome, but sometimes throwing herself on the floor of Nordstrom's, refusing to put a shoe on, that was yesterday. That's sometimes how your practice operates. And what I want to share about what Tyler inspired me to do is it was taught by me and a periodontist, an amazing periodontist, Dr. Cho. So we put those 5 hours together in a companion that you can get and own for life. It's essentially a replica of that course: extraction, bone grafting, surgical placement, restoration, patient communication. But because I'm crazy, Ty, I want to do something more. So we added in 4 one-hour CE on TV programs of entirely new stuff. And what you're going to learn, and maybe even Tyler doesn't know all this, is we're going to have a prosthodontist who places and restores his own implants, from a single tooth implant to an all-on-4, share with you what he thinks about, how he plans cases, and how you may want to become a superhero of implant placement or just stick to easier cases. We're going to have a lab technician, how to work with your dental lab, because you can do a great job with everything, but if the lab case doesn't go well, that's a problem. We're going to have coding, extraction, bone grafting, how to talk with patients about financial agreements. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this tonight is when you purchase a practice, this is the word that's going to hear a lot: systems. Everything that matters needs a system, and everything matters. So when you learn a financial agreement for an implant case, you can translate that to anything else. When you learn to manage expectations of a patient for longer type cases, you can translate that to cosmetic cases. So that is what we have set up for you guys. We have a 5-hour companion, 4-hour live CNTV program. It's all recorded. You get access to recordings to life. It's for dental students, new grads, seasoned age dentists, medium age dentists, anyone who's looking to do more with implant dentistry. Tyler, does that sound like kind of what you envisioned when you asked me to put something together?
It sounds like even more than I would have hoped for, seriously. So I really appreciate you guys putting all that together, and I'm really excited for it myself. I mean, even having been in the course before, I'm excited for the new stuff too.
Yeah, it's always like everything in life is like TV. There's new characters. I got a Dr. Rob, surgical prosthodontist. I got a lab technician, Dr. Carl Corner, all doing that. Now, before we continue on here with this Nacho Y'all Brick Road, your portion really was for me to highlight with a baby age dentist in training. Baby age dentist is just about your age related to dental school, nothing about person better, is how you are learning both the business side and the clinical side simultaneously. Give us a preview of what are you going to do after dental school? Are you looking to buy a practice right away? I mean, nothing that's confidential, but just maybe a story of, are you looking to add implants right away? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course. So, one aspect of, whenever you're looking for a practice, is that you want to have as many tools under your belt as possible. You kind of want to compare that against the person that's selling to you. And it's always good if you have some other things that they don't necessarily have, because that's sort of a value-added thing, especially when you're young, like myself, a baby age dentist, as you said. You're coming out, maybe you're a little bit slower in some things. But let's say the seller doesn't like to pull teeth or doesn't like to place implants. Having that sort of skill in your repertoire can be really powerful. And it's something that looks really good to financiers as well. So as far as my plans, I am amenable to purchasing a practice right out of school. But I also have aspirations of owning a larger group practice, which can be a little bit harder to finance coming right out of school. So I'm planning on a short-term associateship, approximately 6 months to a year, but I'm looking for a practice. And, fortunately I've had a few offers come my way, and, I'm going to have sort of a partnership, with that selling dentist for a short term, and then, buying them out after a very short period of time, and then assuming ownership of the practice. At least that's the game plan.
I love it, Tyler. You represent my ABC of always be connected, because you said a few things. When an awesome dentist was watching tonight, she's just really great. She messaged on Instagram, and she said, I love how you talk about how important connecting is. I'm going to encourage my husband to connect more as a dentist, because you learn about all these cool, fun secrets, right? If you want to buy a practice in Georgia, where you go, and one of the Nacho people said, I want to sell my practice in Georgia, I'd immediately think of you. And that's all from our—
Of course, and I appreciate that.
When you connect behind the scenes in a genuine way, those dentists you genuinely became friends with in Philadelphia, one of them in your life is going to solve a problem for you, and you might solve a problem for them. One of those dentists might say, oh, you were Tyler from the implant course. My associate just went to Perio. I need a new associate. And text said, my dental school roommate is from there. So the always be piece of this is so critical. And I appreciate that. Also, replicating the services of the practice you're going to buy is a very important skill. So when you go to look at a practice, if you can add implants, like you said, or extractions, great. But if the practice is doing molar root canal and you don't do it, that's going to be sometimes a deal breaker for a practice. So that's why I think it's critical that people learn early. So tell us one more time, Tyler, before you jump off, how can people reach out to you directly if they want to learn anything about the Tyler life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Facebook, and you can reach out to me on there. I'm also on Instagram. You've shared my photo here as well, which I really appreciate. And people are welcome to message me, bother me, email me at tyler@sharepraxis.com, and I'm more than happy to hear from anyone, and always happy to help.
Awesome. We named the discount code after you. If you text Jim 215-436-4544. But dentists, this is a real thing. Dentists need deadlines, so it's only good until September 20th. So you have to take advantage of. See, now people will be texting in Tyler before they, a deadline for their things. That's a great thing for patients if people always set a deadline for stuff for action. So appreciate Tyler. We're going to continue on here, but thanks so much.
Thank you, Paul.
Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Okay, guys. So we're going to go back to part of this Nacho Yellow Brick Road. We got some great feedback in the chat that I want to bring to life here. Someone agreed that it is impossible to learn new skills after taking up over a fixer-upper office. Telling you, when you take over a practice or when you bring a child home to your house, do not try to learn any new skills. Don't try to learn Spanish when you have an infant. Not going to happen. Just get through their first couple of years of life. Same thing with practice. It's key to invest in your clinical skills early in the process. Doesn't mean you can never do it after being a practice owner. A lot of times you have to get some stability to your ownership before you do that. It's great sharing there by Tyler. Amanda, any other Q&A stuff, you just pop into there too. So part of the Nacho Yellow Brick Road, avoiding a $30,000 mistake. Management is repetition. What are some of the things that cause this $30,000 mistake? Working with a dual representation broker and not asking enough questions. I had to pay to buy this practice. And to me, I don't think that should be part of how dental brokers works. When I sell practice, I'm only paid by the seller. When dual rep brokers sell practice, they're paid by the buyer and the seller. So I believe there's a real conflict of interest. Number two, not understanding how net profit worked back in 2011. So this practice, which I purchased for $215,000, I truly believe it could have been purchased for $150,000, at least $175,000. So I would have that money back. This is something that don't be too dentist dramatic, where if you make a drop a nacho, doesn't mean you're going to drop the next one. Just learn from it. Learn from me. So looking at the net profit, working with the dual rep broker, and having tough conversations. In this scenario, I should have been willing to have the tough conversations with the seller's family. There's a fourth thing you're going to find out now, which was a huge part of the $30,000 mistake that I did not realize until I became a broker and started working with United Dental Brokers of America. I did not realize that this is something that really affects the purchase price. You're going to hear it in a second here. If you have other questions, feel free to drop them into the chat.
What are we going to do now? And it really wasn't the endodontist's job to determine restorability. So the beginning part of looking at a practice is a lot about the story. One of the nacho tips that we'll give you now, so we talked about how to burn your nachos, work with a dual representation broker. Think that the price of the practice or the value of the practice is based on 60 to 70% of collections, when it should be based on net profit. Another aspect of this is the why. Why is the seller selling? One of the most important questions when I have a new buyer coaching client and they're excited to tell me that this practice has 6 ops and it's in the place that they want, and the floors are the exact floors that they want, and the color of the chairs, I say, okay, great. Why is the seller selling? If it's a weird why, dig more into it. If it's a 45-year-old dentist who said, I just don't want to be involved in dentistry anymore, why is that the case? Maybe their spouse says, hit the lottery. That's a weird why, but it's an okay one. Maybe they couldn't make this practice work and they want to go down the street and they don't want to tell you that up front. There's a lot of bad stuff that happens in the practice transitions world. Dig more into it. If it's a 45-year-old dentist who said, I just don't want to be involved in dentistry anymore, why is that the case? Maybe their spouse says, hit the lottery. That's a weird why, but it's an okay one. Maybe they couldn't make this practice work and they want to go down the street and they don't want to tell you that up front. There's a lot of bad stuff that happens in the practice transitions world, because I want to share with you, one way to burn your nachos is not realizing this world is highly unregulated. Dentists have boards. Attorneys have boards as well. There are rarely any broker boards. It's important to ask good questions of the broker and hire people on your team to help protect you. Just going back to my story here, this practice, a more reasonable price for this practice was closer to $150,000. Why? Let me tell you why. Additionally, look at the people that work in the practice. In this practice, they had a front desk and a hygienist, no assistant. A front desk.
This was the thing. So I didn't realize this at all 9 years ago. This was a dentist. It's a 3-operatory practice, $300,000 a year, 3 days a week, 1 front desk, 1 hygienist. What was the dentist missing? An assistant. So you're going to hear why. When this will hopefully help somebody. One of the tips, I do a lot of speaking, as you guys know. It's not easy to speak on Zoom. You saw me in person. I'm super animated and very interactive. I try my best on Zoom. It's different. But one tip that you can use tomorrow is when you make an important point, don't use the same inflection that you were making all the other points. So if you say to a patient, hey, one of the ways that you can replace this tooth with a dental implant. If you don't replace this tooth, the other teeth could break down. See, I changed. After we do that, another thing that could happen is the bone can shrink. So what I'm bringing this to, because maybe someone's listening to this 5 years from now, and they're just listening, and they say, oh, this must be important. When a dental practice is missing a key staff member, dentist works without an assistant, it's not as valuable, because when you take it over, you're going to need an assistant. So as we look through this, it was much more than a $30,000 mistake. I just use that. I'm sure people watch a show, oh, $30,000, I'll lean in. As I go through this and annoy myself in the process a little bit, you see it's a lot more. So the dental assistant salary should have been put back into the P&L for a new owner there. Got a great comment here from someone who I know, also Nacho. Staffing is also key. The right team who will work well together and share the values of the owner is hard, if not impossible to find. How do we evaluate staff and their acceptance of the transition? Most difficult part of the process. So I have a ton of content on this. If you text success to 215-543-6454, you get another 60 minutes on it. I always say, and we're going to build these segments along the way for this. We have multiple episodes because these should be broken down like this. You can have the bank financing in place. You can have the asset purchase agreement ready. You can have the seller committed to work for 6 months, a year. The most challenging part is, when do you get introduced to the team? If you get introduced too early and the deal falls apart, now the seller has a problem. If you don't know what the team is going to be like, now you may have a problem. It's very, very difficult. And I say there's no great answer to it, but I like to meet the team prior to closing, if possible. That's about the relationship between you and the seller. But remember, ask good questions. Ask him in a way that bring out answers like this. So we have Dr. Guac. I'm going to buy his practice. I'm Dr. Nacho. Hey, Dr. Guac, you have 4 team members here, right? 4 team members. Sounds like they've been here for a long time and doing great. Do you think like one of them might really be resistant to a new owner? Is there like one, is there one? You go, oh, yeah. Katie, it's definitely Katie. Katie will not like that. Note that, write that down. Katie may be a challenge. What makes her like that? Well, she's used to getting off at 3 p.m. every day, and I used to let her do that. This was a real thing that happened to me once. The previous owner let one of the hygienists go at 3 p.m. I agreed to it. Not a good thing. I should not have agreed to it at the time. I didn't know any better. So incredibly important, challenging thing. It's about asking questions to the seller. This is one of the biggest challenges of the practice transition process. But hopefully you get this golden Nacho tip right now. If you just tuned in now, or you're only paying attention now, if in practice is missing a key team member, key staff member on their P&L, add it back in as an expense that you're going to have to pay when figuring out the purchase price. Really good point there.
Dentist, no assistant. That is weird. So if an assistant was to make $30,000, because most dentists work with an assistant, that would decrease the net profit. So if we took over this practice and we did the same as the dentist before us and brought in $100,000, but we had to hire an assistant, now we're down to 70. So that's a factor involved. Sometimes another one is, this is why a dental-focused accountant is so important. One thing I'm going to say to you is don't be dentist cheap when buying one of the most important things in your life. Do not be dentist cheap when buying one of the most important things in your life. Hire good advisors and pay them. If you cannot figure out how to pay a dental-focused accountant and a dental-focused attorney, I will give you this tough love. You're not ready to buy a practice. If you cannot figure out how to pay a dental-focused accountant or a dental-focused attorney, you are not in the right situation to buy a practice, because the thousands of dollars you pay them will prevent you from burning your nachos. A dental-focused accountant will help you dig into the cash flow, the most important part of this process. How much money really comes out of this practice? And unless you are an accountant, think of it like an endodontist finding MB2. Unless you do this all the time, no one else can do this as well as a dental-focused accountant. They're the endodontist of this world. So the dental-focused accountant and dental-focused attorney are the two most important people on your team. They are the ones who are going to protect you the most. The dental-focused accountant is often one of the first people I recommend one of my buyer coaching clients talks to, so they can get the real cash flow. Because let me give you an example. If somebody who was earning $180,000 a year as an associate wanted to buy the practice that we bought as our second practice, they would take quite a decrease or dip in income. Now, to some people, that is no problem because they want to own a practice. To other people, they have expenses that do not allow them to do that. So the dental-focused accountants say to the dental-focused accountant, let's look at these P&Ls, let's look at these tax returns. Another thing to share, which I did not know, P&Ls are something the dentist does. Tax returns are what go to the government. So P&Ls can be helpful. Tax returns are the real story. One of the things I will also...
Please just take a second to think about this, because I did not know this at all until I started working as a broker. P&Ls are a story from the owner and the accountant and the bookkeeper. Tax returns are the real deal. P&Ls are a story. Tax returns are a real deal. So there's nothing wrong with looking at P&Ls. They have to be supported by tax returns. The challenging part of buying a practice mid-year is because you're relying on the first 6 months of the P&L. So P&Ls and tax returns are two different things. Tax returns are critical. Now, if anybody wants to answer in the chat here, I want to sell you a practice. It's in Center City, Philadelphia. It does $1.5 million a year. The dentist makes $700,000 a year. It's a good practice. Has 6 operatories. Dentist does restorative dentistry. The dentist is retiring, 70 years old. Who would want to buy that practice? Center City, Philadelphia. Does $1.5 million a year, 6 operatory practice, $700,000 in net profit, $700,000 in net profit, or net income to the owner. One of the things we'll talk about in future episodes is EBITDA versus profit. Really, for a solo practice, we're just talking about the money that comes out of that practice for the owner, the money that comes out for the owner. So many of you want to buy it. If you work with a broker, be cool when working with brokers. Here's why. I will get an email from someone that I've never met that wants to look at a practice. Great. They sign the NDA. Great. I tell them about the practice, or my team does. Hey, it's, we have signed the NDA. It's in Center City, Philadelphia. Here's the owner. Do you want to talk to the owner? Say, I got to see the tax returns before I make my next decision. Don't say that, because what you're basically saying is, this is all about me. If I look at the tax returns and they're good, I'll move forward. If I don't look at the tax returns and they're not good, I won't move forward. That's not how you purchase a practice and develop relationships. When you talk to a broker and they tell you where the practice is, how many operatories there are, the total collections, and some general info about the practice, that is all I need to talk to the owner on the phone. Go see the owner in person, okay? Because I am into developing relationships, and I don't even want too much information before I do that. Now, if I go there and I love the practice, but they only have 20%, a net profit or net income at the end, then I probably wouldn't move forward, but I'll still be glad to have met that person. But I have had, like a new dentist, maybe you're a new dentist who got a patient who keeps you for 3 hours when it should have only been at 30 minutes because they're talking, they're asking questions, you don't know how to get out of that. It happened to me as a new broker 4 years ago. Sometimes I'd spend 8-9 hours with somebody on a practice and they would never even offer to meet the dentist or call the dentist. So the way I operate is sign NDA, talk to person, email with person, give general info on the practice, and then say, hey, would you like to set up a call with that dentist or meet that dentist? No, I need to know exactly how many active patients there are. Show that you're willing to take that step forward in a relationship-driven thing will go a long way, and brokers will like you when you do that, because I'm a broker, and that's going to make me like you. Now, if it's a practice that nobody wants and I can't find a buyer, then maybe I'll start giving out the tax returns early, but that's a red flag. So I've learned my lesson. Hopefully you guys will use that in working with brokers and making yourself likable. Being likable, huge part of this process. Being likable, huge part of this process. Let's see, another minute or two here.
Add in is that a dental focus accountant will help you understand the concept of add backs. So if in a practice that does $1 million a year, the dentist takes home and they're paid $200,000, but they pay $30,000 in 401k and $20,000 towards their car and $10,000 in health insurance and $5,000 in quote unquote travel, those can be add backs that you may not need to spend as a new owner. So that enhances the profit. So if you look at a tax return and it says a dentist only makes $180,000 on a $1 million practice, make sure you dig into that with your dental focused accountant, because your dental focused accountant will say, nope, they actually make $290,000 and there's $110,000 of add backs. So getting back to...
So because I am in Nacho headquarters by myself, because it's a pandemic and we're not sitting and seeing each other, I can only just see myself here in the screen. Just see if I am making an impact on you. Can someone give me an example of an add back in the chat? Is there an add back? What's an example of an add back? Something you would add back to the profit that a dentist pays out of the practice that you wouldn't necessarily need to pay, which would enhance, would make better the net profit. So I want to give me an example of an add back. What they do with their accounting, you're not there to judge them as the IRS. Travel, good one, thank you. But good. Car payment. Man, if you're still like, give these people free prizes. Thank you for saying something. I appreciate it. Expensive car, CE, travel, make their car payments. Perfect. So these are things for you to home office bill is one of them, right? Rent to themselves as a landlord. That's a really good one. Rent to themselves as a landlord is not an add back. That is normal. If I own, my brother and I own our building, and if we charge $5,000 a month in rent, that is a normal expense. I'm glad someone said that though, because you know it's not normal. So I hope we're learning some things here, really good ones. Paying your wife as an employee. If their wife works legitimately, yes. If they're the hygienist, if it's made up wife stuff so they can get a 401k, and I'm not judging them made up. Maybe they do this, bookkeeping. If you don't need it, an add back is, do you need to do this thing? It's really good. Explain to like a 4-year-old. Here's an add back. Do I need to do this thing to run the practice? Do I need to travel? No. Do I need to do CE at COIS? No, you don't need to do CE COIS. Do I need to pay my home phone bill? No. The rent thing was great. Great point you guys brought up. So rent is normal, but you know it's not normal? So remember when I said practice I purchased, said it made $100,000 a year, but it didn't pay an assistant 30 grand? That should take that 100 and knock it down to 70. I also see that someone owns their building, okay? Bob Guac Enterprises owns the building and rents it to Bob Guac DDS. And they never account for rent in their P&L. But now when you buy the practice, if you can't buy the building, you have to pay rent. So it actually cuts the other way, and rent or not having an assistant can be a red flag for the profit. It's actually lower if they don't have that. Very impressed with you guys. Thank you. Blinds for my home built in my practice. Yes. Meals. I love this. See, this is great. All right, good. So what we're going to do now, because we have segments, is I'm going to stay around and answer some questions, show a quick video of someone who I think as a role model to me. He doesn't know me, but I was on Tea with Gary Vee. It's what I'm trying to build in this dentisting world. All the words that he talked about here with kindness and us being nicer to each other and us cheering each other on is why I get up and do what I do. I'm going to show this and I'll stick around and I'll answer some questions for 20 minutes. There'll also be some more prizes along the way. We're going to have one next week, September 20th at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you're watching this live, if you're watching this 4 years from now, September 20th, 8 p.m. Eastern is not going to matter to you. So I got some questions here. So just drop your questions. Oh yeah, this is from my email today. Oh, that's perfect. So I'm going to show this video. I'm going to answer some questions. There's 2 videos to show you. One about how we can help you at Nachos, and 2 is my Gary V inspirational thing. And then I'll be right back on to answer some questions.
Are you a dentist that has hopes and dreams? Owning a practice, hiring an associate, finding a good job, and most of all, crying less on the inside each day? My name is Paul, Dr. Nacho, and I can help you with those hopes and dreams. As a dentist, I treatment plan dental implants to help patients chew and smile with confidence. As Dr. Nacho, which I think is a real doctor and should be, I help dentists treatment plan their hopes and dreams, figure out how to get to the next step in their career. What makes sense now? What makes sense later? A lot of times this is about buying a practice, hiring an associate, bringing on a partner, moving, not moving, hiring an office manager, all the things they didn't teach us in dental school. So our treatment planning, your dentisting hopes and dreams calls are some of my favorite things to do. They're fun, they're easy, and super reasonably priced. To reach out to us to learn about your treatment planning, your hopes and dreams call, you can do it in a few ways. 1, you can text or call 267-896-4886, and Ariel will share with you how you can learn more about it. You can also email salsa@dentalnachos.com or visit dentalnachos.com. I love helping dentists be more aware and prepared for their next step in dentisting. What comes with your hopes and dreams call? It's a 30-minute call, can be Zoom, can be on the phone with me. You also get a year subscription to Dental Nacho Flix, which has over 60 hours of CE, bonus nachos on patient communication, and leadership, business, practice management, and getting your team on the same page. It's an amazing platform you can use every day from your phone that comes with your treatment planning, your hopes and dreams call. And most of all, my jokes, they're free. Some would say priceless. That's my aunt, but she calls them priceless. So I would love to help you. Just reach out to us at salsa@dentalnachos.com. Call or text 267-896-4886 or visit dentalnachos.com. Are you
Buying a dental. So I have a couple questions before I show this video. So we had a good question. How to make sure your bank is presenting fair terms for the loan acquisition? Really excellent question. Sometimes a percentage point can make all the difference. I mean, this happens with dental student loans. I have awesome key resources and sponsors of Dental Nachos. To me, Dental Nachos, like a big free park. We got stuff on the side, sells beer, wine, cheese, whatever you want. You want to buy something, great. You don't want to buy something, enjoy the free park. But there's some really good things in the sides of this free park that can save you tons of money, decrease stress. And I have a great friend who's an amazing guy, came to Boost Camp. And he said, my best sponsor of everything I do is Travis Hornsby from Student Loan Planner. If you text loans to 55444, you'll get Travis's info. Travis is like the Batman of loans. His wife is a medical doctor. She came home from work one day, didn't tell Travis he was in the financial industry, signed up to refinance her loans, $60,000 it cost his family. He turned his entire business into helping dentists and doctors manage their student loans. What he charges for this, I think, is just incredibly reasonable. It's in the hundreds of dollars. So he helped this Boost Camper remanage his loans and his wife's loans, saving them tons of money. Why am I talking about this? Because dental student loans are tough to figure out, no matter what you say, with the interest rates, private, this, that. So going to someone like Travis Hornsby for your dental student loans, Student Loan Planner, if you go to Dental Nachos, his landing page is there too. I highly recommend you get that checked out if you have student loans, whether you're a dental student, whether you're new in practice, because here's what's going to happen. Maybe you pay $500. I'm not totally sure. I think it's between like $400 and $800. Travis is either going to tell you and his team, you're doing an awesome job. Keep doing this. That's going to make you feel good. Or he's going to say, you got to tweak some things here and we can save you $10,000. But sorry to tell you this, but the way you've been paying them, it's cost you an extra $10,000. So what I call that is nothing bad can happen. So why am I saying this before this question here? I wish there was somebody like that for practice loans. Your accountant should be able to help too, but even accountants looking at loans can be confusing. I have someone who works for me as an amazing high-level bookkeeper who has accounting background. If you want to talk with Paul's Nacho-tastic bookkeeper, he's helped me with this because he's so into it. He looks at these loans, but when you look at, and we have banks as sponsors of the group. Let's just say we're going to look at Joe's bank and Bill's bank. You know, Joe's bank could say 10 years at this interest rate, but there's prepayment early penalties. And you looking at those documents is like a banker trying to read how the bond works, okay? Only you are really going to know. So I encourage you to get a dental focused accountant, maybe financial planner, but excellent question there. Definitely get input from more than one bank. If you want to be connected with banks that we work at, just put Nacho Banks to email salsa@dentalnachos.com, Nacho Banks, and we can connect with them. They definitely give you some good Nacho TLC service. I always tell people, get the best interest rates for you. These things change. It's like the price of gold. Things change, but very critical for you to dig into that. Second question, which was good, really good one. How to avoid or minimize the loss when your acquisition is getting recredentialed with insurances. So there's dental insurances that no longer offer a premier status to new people signing up, new dentists. So the older dentist may have premier status with guac PPO. And let's say they bring in $600,000 of guac PPO fees. Then you purchase the practice and you do not get that status. And you do the exact same work as the previous owner. And they only pay you $490,000. That is really stale nachos, broken nachos. There's no good answer to this. Most of the time, sellers do not want to take less money because of that. But if they don't have any offers, they might. Incredibly important. So what I ask you when I do buyer coaching with dentists, and my buyer coaching is like LOEPA. It's super reasonable. We talk about the deal. I go over it. I get you in touch with people. I tell you, hey, run from this thing. It looks pretty good. It looks awesome. You know, dentists, you guys are a little dramatic. Sometimes people, a little dramatic, I mean, a lot dramatic. They bring me a practice deal. They say, see this practice in Colorado? I don't think I want to buy it. I don't think it's good. I'm like, it does $1 million a year. That's 5 operatories and they're $380,000 in profit. This is great. Stop being such a negative dentist Nelly, right? Other times people bring me a deal and they go, this is really great, isn't it? I go, this is 3 operatories. They do $300,000. They go, oh, but I can build it up. I'm like, how are you going to build this up? The patient base here is not one that has accepted this in the past. Do you want to go from making $180,000 as an associate to $90,000? So my buyer coaching think that is like the LOEPA of the practice deal. I have a great key resource and sponsor, Vivek Keenra, PPO Profits. If you want to get his information, just text HAPPY to 215-543-6454. Vivek changes people's lives. So there's dentists in the Dental Nachos group. I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to do it. You pay Vivek a lump sum. He negotiates with insurances for you. He comes back and gives you what he can get. And you either say, I want it or I don't want it. If you don't like it, he refunds your money except like $500. But rarely does anyone say it because sometimes getting just $1 more on a pro fee can be tens of thousands of dollars. The insurance credentialing world is extra nacho nuts. How you can minimize that is to work with a good team, ask a lot of questions, and talk to the seller about it. And it's, if you're going to buy a practice that has a lot of PPOs that you have to sign up for, it's challenging. Doesn't mean don't buy it. But if you have to sign up for 14 PPOs and get credentialed, and what are you going to do while you're waiting to get credentialed? It's challenging. Reach out to people like a Vivek Keenra. We also have Stephanie Mapp, who's an awesome dentist and dental nacho who teaches about this. Read into this. Watch into this. Our Dental Nachos Flix has like 4 courses on this. You just text Flix to 215-543-6454. And tonight you'll be watching insurance courses because this is a scary thing. If you do not get the same credentialing as the previous owner, it can impact the profit forever. So it doesn't mean don't buy the practice. It just means really work with the team well in doing that. Let me see if there's any other questions here. Okay, so we'll, I want to play this video. It's 5 minutes long. It's one of my favorite videos. Gary Vee is one of my favorite people. I was on Tea with Gary Vee. His concept of being kind, working together is what dentistry needs more of. Everything he does is what I hope to be a part of doing in the dentisting world, but we need to do it together, not just with one Dr. Nacho. It's not going to be easy, but we can change the dental student hunger games. We can change the toxic mentality. Nobody likes the dentist. We might as well like each other. I don't know why we have to be so dramatic with each other, whether it's on Facebook groups, Instagrams, or at CE courses, but maybe, just maybe, this pandemic can cause a shift in how we look at each other, how we talk to each other, how we reach out to each other. Can we be more supportive? Can we be kinder? Can you go on Facebook after this and just like someone's post or say thanks for sharing instead of being TSD, that's so dentist, and saying something negative. It doesn't mean saying something's okay when it's not okay. Someone had the implant in upside down, you wouldn't say it's okay. But you could say, hey, that's not the way we do this. I think you should strive to do it this way. We don't have to be like this. So I want to end it on this video. I think it's an awesome video. There's also a CBCT code here to get a free CBCT course, which is fantastic, by Dr. Lou Graham. We're going to be back to do another one of these. I'm really enjoying how not to burn your nachos when buying a practice. Next one's going to be what to do when your deal's about to die and you want to cry. What would be very helpful to me while we watch this video is if you put one thing in the chat that you learned tonight, that you said, hey, I'm going to think about this tomorrow. That would be really super helpful for me so I can make these courses better and better. As always, thanks for watching in. We'll be glad to connect with you at dentalnachos.com or through our text platform or email. Really appreciate you guys being part of the Dental Nachos community. It means a lot to me.
There's a great thing that somebody said to me years ago, and I say it all the time. There's two ways to build